need to know what to do with that dough. Let the chef show you. You need to know what to do with that dough.
So welcome back to another episode of Need to Know Pod. We have an amazing guest, Miss Mignon Francois. She is the owner and CEO of the Cupcake Collection. She started her business in her kitchen, but it's just so much more than that. With her last $5, she'll tell you all about it. She has an amazing book, Made from Scratch. I know there's a subtitle, but I know I read Made from Scratch, so I'll let her tell you all about her awesomeness. So let's welcome Miss Mignon Francois. I need some sounds. So welcome. So welcome, Miss Mignon Francois. It is an honor. So she has a book, like I said, Made from Scratch. But before I just let you know and let you get started, I just want to tell you how the book I connected with you. Yes, I was interested in your baking story, but the book read like a novel. So I feel like I know you because I read your book, but also just on the level of being a woman, the connection I made with just your struggles and everything you went through. So it hit me in a way that I didn't think it would. So I want to thank you. I want to thank you for your transparency, your courage, for telling your story. Like I was telling everybody, like, this book is good, right? So I just wanted to say that and thank you. And again, just the woman connection that we could talk totally separate just about the stuff. So I want to thank you.
I hope that we do get to talk a little bit about that. One thing I can say is thank you for giving that gift to me of the affirmation of the book, right? Because I just spilled all of my vulnerability out for the world to see. And God has blessed me in such a way that other people are saying, this is my life, and you've written it on pages. Oh my goodness, I've known that I had something and now I'm going to do it. And that is what I was hoping to do. I was hoping to tell others what they could do if they only believed. And when I'm saying if you only believe, you don't even have to have all the belief. Yes. All you need is a little bit of the belief. If you can believe in yourself just a little bit, what could happen if you only believed?
And I feel like just as women, we're connected in so many ways, but you have affirmed sometimes as an entrepreneur, we kind of feel like we're in this space by ourselves. You have written things that like nobody else would understand, but someone who has walked in your shoes, who has created a business and all the struggles. So like I said, your transparency, it just was everything. I'm telling people to read the book. You know, it's not even to me, it's not even about the business, right? It is, but it isn't, because it's towards the end that you get to all that. And
I first introduced you to my life. I first introduced you to all of the turmoil that leads me to this place. And because then I tell you how I get out of it.
Because that turmoil is what makes you who you are, right? I believe that if you didn't have those struggles, it shapes who we are as people, right? So if life was just, you were able to just skate through, I don't think that we would make the difficult decisions. I think you got to learn from those experiences. So
amen.
With that being said, again, I thank you. So tell everybody, let's tell us who you are and how you got into this whole cupcake business, even though I know.
My name is Mignon Francois. I believed that God didn't waste this fabulous name on nobody knowing it. So I needed to do my due diligence to make my name great. Problem is, there wasn't nothing great happening in my life. I wasn't producing anything great, and I didn't feel like I was doing the things that can make my parents proud. I did not feel like I was achieving, and I came from a high achieving expectation, and I was not doing that. I fell on my knees and I asked God for something that I could do, I was living in a house with no electricity the majority of the time. I was living in a house without water many days. In 2008, so 2007, 2005, 2006, while the world was going through an economic downturn, it should not have affected my life in this way. Like, my reality was I should have been on public assistance, but I could not qualify for public assistance because we were able-bodied. According to public assistance, we made too much. I was just talking to my son about this just earlier today. We were making $30,000 as a 2-parent household with 6 children. That's 8 people on $30,000. That is not enough. And according to the government, then figure it out. You know what I'm saying? And so there were many days that my children didn't have what they needed. And I just got tired of being sick and tired. And I asked God for something that I could do. And I heard God say, make cupcakes. Well, the problem with that is that I didn't know how to bake, not even out of a box. And as I started practicing, I realized in the kitchen, I called my grandma on the phone and said, Grandma, the man on the radio says you can get out of debt by having a bake sale. So I need to have a bake sale. And my grandmother was confused by that because I had been prior, 17 years earlier, I had been in school to become a doctor. So why are you now in the kitchen trying to have a bake sale? This doesn't add up to my grandmother.
Right.
And I was like, Grandmother, look. I'm just trying to make ends meet. So she was like, open up your hand. There's so much loaded in that statement. Open up your hand. We can get to it later, but she said, open up your hand, put that much flour, pinch your fingers together, put that much salt, and she walked me through her recipe because, I have a Black grandma. Like, she didn't have recipes. She's old South, Louisiana. On the bayou, grandma.
Yes.
And so I wrote down everything my grandmother said. And in looking at everything she said, I baked the cake. It came out horrible. And so I went back and I looked at it again. What didn't I do well about this? And I realized it jumped off the paper in that moment. This is what they meant in organic chemistry. This is balancing chemical equations. Oh, well, now I want to go back to medical school at this point, right? I want to try to go back and get that pre-med degree and go to medical school, right? And God said, keep focused. That's not what I'm calling you to. And I rewrote, to the best of my abilities, my first time doing it, I rewrote the recipe right then. And I balanced everything because, I learned that my hand was a half of a cup, keeping my hand open, right? When you open up your hand to receive from others, things can come in, but it also leaves room for things to fall out, right? So you can't always just keep your hand out. People like, you can't learn that with your hand out. You always got your hand out. But there is something to be said for having your hand out if your intentions are right with your hand out, right? And so having my hand out allowed me to receive, but I kept my hand open in order to also give. And I promised God that if he would make me successful, I would tell anyone who would listen about what they could do if only they believe. And so that's what keeping my hand open has looked like for the world to see as I've been mentoring and coaching and all this kind of stuff for other people who are just trying to make it from where they are to where it is that they want to be. But I made my first successful recipe in the kitchen 17 years after leaving college. It all dawned on me in the kitchen that what I had been studying that I couldn't make sense of for the human body, I had to do that because I was failing my science classes. I had to change majors. I had to change schools, all this kind of stuff. And I thought that I was a failure, but failure in one season is favor in a season that's coming. Had I not had the failure of that other season, I wouldn't be prepared to receive the favor of the season I was standing in. And I needed the past to inform my future. So when you're on the journey from where you are to where you want to be, you cannot be afraid to go back and look again, because every stupid thing that you've ever had to do is taking you from where you are to where you want to be. There are no mistakes. It's all just necessary. And so if you will go back and look at your experiences and look over your life and see who left you, see who messed over you, see what you had to go through, you would find out that all of these things were adding up to prepare you to take you from where you are to where you want to be. And that's just a little bit of how I did the amazing feat of taking the last $5 I had for dinner one week and turning it into the legacy that it is today with over 5 million cupcakes sold.
I'm just in awe because the way you said that, like, I understand and it just touches me. And I feel like now I really hear your voice in the book, right?
Mm-hmm.
I hear your voice and I'm receiving everything because I believe that wholeheartedly. And you have just summed it up. Sometimes I feel like I can't articulate or maybe there's not an audience to say that to. So I thank you for spreading that message, because I know people who are looking to do things and fear can keep you stuck. You said something like, once you have a thought, like the idea, but once you write it down, it becomes the plan. And I think a lot of people stay in the idea phase and never follow through. They never follow through. So, I don't know if it's just a Virgo thing, but it is my faith as well that I just believe, like, I'm determined to be great. So everything you said, it just hit home in a way that I typically can't communicate with other people because they wouldn't understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the book a little bit.
Okay.
So at 17, you were a single parent, and
teenage mom.
Yes. I was in awe of your mom. I'm not gonna try to give too much away, but after 17, then you got married at 19.
Mm-hmm.
You got married at 19, and at 19, you married a man who already had 3 kids.
Mm-hmm.
What? Okay. And I just stopped. Like, again, that was my woman connection. I remember you saying you wish your mom would have told you not to, right? And sometimes as young people, we have to go through these lessons, as hard as it is. But you did that, right? And I commend you because you did that and stayed in it.
Yeah.
Stayed in it.
I still would be in it today. I still would be in it today. But God loves me so much that he yanked me out of it. And when I look back on my life, me and my children were just laughing about this. I am not the same person I used to be. I am so much better than I used to be. And I thank God that I begged my husband not to leave and he just didn't want to stay.
When I saw that, I was like, wait a minute.
And I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful that he didn't want to stay.
And the nerve, like, as your business was, you were starting out. Like the nerve, when you could have left a long time ago, he had the nerve to say, like, oh, well, the nerve, right?
Let me tell you, there are things that I did not even place inside of this book.
You know what? That's one of my questions. How did you decide what to keep?
That's a good question. I didn't want to be a victim. I was a willing participant in my life. So I see everything that happened to me as something that I participated in. So I can't say that he did this to me and she did that to me when I participated in my own life. Okay. And so I think a lot of times people don't take responsibility for themselves. And one of my top strengths is taking responsibility. I take responsibility for myself and everybody connected to me. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't want to be a victim. At the same time, this wasn't just my story. This is also my children's story. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to say anything that I felt like could be perceived by them as theirs to carry. So I tell a story in this book that I never told until the book. And that's my near death experience at the hands of my husband. And so I had never publicly shared that story before. So as I finished writing the story, I took it to my daughter and I said, "Can you read this story?" And so she read it and she handed it back to me. She didn't say anything. She just handed it back to me. And I was like, "Well," she's like, "What?" And I said, "Is it good?" She said, "You want to know if the recount of me at 7 years old watching my dad try to kill my mom is good?" She said, "No, it's well written." I said, "Do you have a problem with me publishing this story?" And she said, "No, I think there's people who need to hear it." And they gave, individually, they gave me permission to tell the story. So I told it. But there are things that were not anyone's business. There were things that are not going to edify anyone. There's things that are not going to help you get out of the situation you're in to get to a better place. So there was no need for me to tell it. There are things that I'm saving for another book or another opportunity to say, but I won't say them until I can say them in a way that uplifts people, because I believe that everything that happens to us actually happens for us. And so if it can't be for your good, I'm not going to tell you, because I know it was already for my good. I already got the goodness out of it. So I didn't want to be a victim in telling my personal story. And so that's why I was very selective. And this was not a story about my ex-husband. This was a story about me. And this was a story about how God delivered me and how God brought the work that God wanted me to do, and how the story, you would be able to see yourself in the story, and how you could take my story, turn the mirror of reflection on yourself and say, now I'm going to use these things and I'm going to take this as a blueprint and move forward in my own life. And if it couldn't do those things, it couldn't make it into the book. And there was a lot of stuff that I had written when it came back to me, when it came back printed, and I was going through, I was like, take that out, take that out. I mean, I was pulling stories, pulling them like, nope, this can't make it. This can't make it. Because at first I was afraid that I ripped the book up so much that, it was like, what's left? But I feel like it was a better project because it didn't complain about what had happened to me, but it explained. Ooh, that's good, God. It didn't complain. It explained what happened for me.
Did your husband read the book or know that he would be
I
in
don't
it?
know.
Okay.
I don't know if he's read it, and I don't
care. Oh, okay.
He is of no concern of my own.
Yes,
My children are adults,
yes.
and we have nothing.
Also, I commend you because at 19, I think we aren't fully developed. My brother lives in Tennessee. So I called him. I was like, oh, I have the interview with have you ever heard of this place, the Cupcake Collection? He was like, I think I have. And I looked up the locations. I think he said he tried the one, Lenox something or other.
Yeah, Lenox Village.
Yeah. So he was like, it's really good. But, speaking of my brother, I try to explain to him. So we are Muslim, right? So we have the same father. My father was growing up. I used to say my father passed, but he was killed. Let's just right. So that was when we were younger. So Muslims believe in having more than one wife. So that's how I have my brother. So and they also have arranged marriages. So he married this 18-year-old girl when he must have been about 25. So it's not until you live a little in experience. So I just had this conversation. I said at 18, she wasn't developed. She wasn't meant to be. She was a wife. She's been a mother. All she knows is you. She didn't have a chance to learn who she was, Yeah. And I believe that. I feel so strongly about that. I always tell him, brother, I'm always a woman first. So I have I connect through that, right? Just being a
Mhm.
woman. So, and I don't think sometimes men look through those lenses. So for you to take on this man who already had kids, right? Already had kids. I know women who aren't 19, who are in their 40s, who take on these men because sometimes they're just looking, help me out with these kids. You know, I have a
Mhm.
girlfriend who had that situation and ended horribly. But
Mhm.
again, the you'll get those blessings. Those are your kids, you know. So
Mhm.
at 19, you had to pull a strength to not only take care of your young child. I think that was Dylan. I'm not sure.
Mhm. Yeah.
right? Right?
Yeah.
Then you turned around and before you could now you're married, then you just had another baby.
Mhm.
And so to look at you and to hear your confidence and but to read that book where it took a while for you to get to that point, you know?
Mhm.
So I just I can't say enough. And I'm gonna try not to keep saying it, but I just can't say enough because again, just having that woman connection and so many women go through stories that aren't told. So
Mhm.
I'll leave it at that.
Amen.
okay, so okay, so now you move from New Orleans to
Mhm.
Tennessee
Mhm.
and you decided to start this baking business, right? I
Mhm.
thought that was amazing because in New York you can't have like cottage businesses where you
Okay.
were able to set up your cupcake business
Right
and
inside my house.
yeah, so tell that story on how did that come to be? Yes, you was making cupcakes, but how did it turn into a sure enough business?
Yeah. So we have cottage laws in Tennessee that allow that if you have certain things in place in your house, you can have a food-based business in your house. My house was special though.
Mm-hmm.
It had two doors on the front. And so one door led to a whole room that was kind of segregated from the rest of the house. And so that became the door to go into the bakery, and it was basically sealed off as its
Mm-hmm.
own thing. So when I was working from home, but really it was a store within my house. So it would have been the equivalent to back in the day when they had the business on the bottom and you lived over
Mm-hmm.
the top,
Mm-hmm.
because nothing ever, I didn't like have dishes out my sink.
Okay.
I didn't have stuff in my refrigerator in my kitchen. It had everything isolated in
Mm-hmm.
this room of its own. And so when I started the Cupcake Collection, I started with a dorm size refrigerator and a KitchenAid mixer because that's what I could afford. And it would keep temperature. So even if I had to go to the grocery store several times a day, then that's what I needed to do, go to the grocery
Mm-hmm.
store several times a day. And it passed inspection. And so that's how I opened my bakery business in my house.
Okay, so and because as a pastry chef, so I want to dive deep into how you came up with the flavors. I know you asked your grandmother about that first cupcake,
Mhm.
but now you have this business with multiple locations. How did
Yeah.
you explained how you broke down the recipe of one cupcake? How did
Mhm.
you learn like the icings? And as pastry chefs, that was something that was I did not know because I could not bake a box cake.
Mhm.
That was not my thing. I could cook,
I
I could
still
not
can't.
bake.
I still can't.
Not really. Yeah, I can't. And what I love is that I love teaching people how to bake from scratch because it
Mhm.
tastes so much better. So how did you and as pastry chefs we use scales, so that was something that I had to learn and I try to teach people because it's more accurate. And now when
Mhm.
you scale you can give those recipes, let people follow them. So you may have a measuring cup that's a few grams off, but if I tell you 140 grams, put 140 grams, right?
Right.
So how did you create like the other flavors? Did you use that same
I use
methodology?
the same method. So once I realized that this was a chemical equation,
Mm-hmm.
so for my science people out there, I I approached the recipe like a chemist, not like a
Mm.
baker.
Okay.
So once I realized this was a chemical equation, I always balanced the chemicals.
Hmm.
So I was always baking from the heart of baking soda, baking powder, cream
Yes.
of tartar, vinegar. Like, how do you make these things act in such a way that they will make your flour or your finished product rise, using eggs as a level, as a leveling agent and things like that. I baked from that side, not from the tradition of, like you said, this is how much flour it should be.
But it's important because a lot of people don't know that I mean, people may say it, baking is a science, but it is. So when those chemicals react, right, for you to say baking soda and baking powder, what's the difference, right?
Yeah.
What's the difference? When do you use that baking soda? A lot of people don't know. So I even try to explain like just the basics. So I think when you have a better understanding of why you use certain ingredients, people just think, oh, give me some baking powder. But I can look at a recipe and you'll have baking powder, they'll have vinegar and buttermilk. So now you're gonna get a different product, right? Because baking soda, right?
Exactly. Yes, that's how and so I went in and I figured out what you just said. Why baking soda sometimes? Why baking powder sometimes? Why both of them sometimes? Why none of them sometimes? And just really tried to understand. And let me just say, prayer, a lot of praying. I heard you say that you're Muslim. One of the things I respect about the Muslim culture is their respect for the reverence of prayer. And what is required just to prepare yourself in order to pray. We are arrogant. We are arrogant individuals. If you see a Muslim pray, we are arrogant as we go before the Most High God and say, can you give me this? And I haven't even prepared myself in a posture. That's a side note. So anyway, God is really teaching me something in that alone, just in that alone. So it was a lot of prayer and communication with heaven and saying, okay, God, what, how they say, people say they want to quiet their mind. I just had to quiet my mind. I tried that one time. And I'm like, how in the heck am I supposed to quiet my actual mind? Like, I do not want to quiet my mind because I feel like God is up in there. He's in there and he's talking to me. And if
sometimes you need to be quiet so you can hear that. You can hear it.
But I feel like that's the noise that I hear. That's what's happening in my mind is the conversation I'm having back and forth with heaven at all times. I don't want to quiet my mind. I understand what people are saying. They want to quiet the self-talk and they want to quiet the negative talk and things like that.
No, I think sometimes when people say, like, I know for me, if it's too much noise, my husband got the TV on, I need quiet. Because when I'm thinking, I feel like I'm able to connect better with God that way. But if it's too much, now you can't really what you say? Or what should I be doing? I feel like sometimes, for me, I don't know how other people feel, but for me, I need that quiet space so I can be more in tune to maybe receive those messages.
Amen. So that's how, I was finding out why, and then I was talking to God. You know how you get that gut feeling that says, you know what? I'm about to stand up right now. And then you find out the whole house done fell down in the place where you were just sitting, right? I felt that God was dropping information to me and I was trying it. And I would test those things that came into my gut that said, you really should. Okay, I'm gonna do that, and then it would succeed. And that's how I did it. And like once I got it, I didn't try to fix it. You know what I mean? Once I got it and I perfected it, I went on to the next thing. I let it stay the way that it is. I brought cake with me to the table. As soon as we wrap, my treat is this carrot cake. This is a recipe, one of the first recipes that I created. It's one of the most popular things. It's got carrots in it, pineapples in it. It's got raisins in it. when I first started out with it, I used to even put dates in it. Like everything you ever had in a carrot cake, it's in there.
So good question. Seeing that you said you even put dates. The way I create my recipes, sometimes. So for me, I wanted to share more. I mean, I wanted to sell more gourmet products where I feel like people in our community wouldn't have access to it. So if I would make macaroons, or I remember in school we learned how to make rugula. Rugula became one of like my top selling things. So I would have to go places to kind of understand how it should taste. So if
Yeah.
you have all these cupcake flavors, how do you know that it's good? I know you go and let people taste it, but
Yes.
like always searching for that flavor. Because I've
Yeah.
done that. Like I had a peanut butter cupcake, like just playing with the ice in it. It's missing something. So it takes time. It takes time. So
Yeah.
I see you have like a yam. That's
Sweet potato.
damn good. A
So
sweet potato, right?
good.
Sweet potato. So
That's what
I
we
don't
hope you
even.
say when you try it. It's so good.
Yes. So I wouldn't even know. I mean, I guess I would, but I don't think I would have thought to make a sweet potato cupcake. Yeah. So how do you know?
It's because of my heritage.
Oh yeah, that's true.
It's because of my heritage. My father was born on a sugarcane plantation.
Right.
And so it's not lost on me that my heritage hails from the place where more enslaved people came into this country than any other gateway in the entire world. And they brought with them what they knew. Their languages were taken, but their soul wasn't stripped. Their opportunities were taken, but their soul wasn't stripped. They took their children from them and they tried to rip out their souls in that way. And it's the grit of that is living in my DNA.
That's
and
the thing.
I want so terribly to pay homage back to that. So everything that we do looks back over my life and it thinks things over. And it can say that I've been blessed by the testimony of those who can no longer speak. And so that if you know me and you experience me, you will experience them, not because you got to hear them or talk to them, but because you got to experience the food that I gave you that is a living, breathing testament to their existence. Because now America is trying to say it didn't happen.
You better say a thing, Mignon. That's what? You better say a thing.
You know,
even the state that you live in, Tennessee, and even at Louisiana, the I don't want to get into politics, but the nerve, the gall of these people, you know, it's heartbreaking. But you saying a thing, and you are from New Orleans, and I know that you said you moved to Tennessee before Katrina happened. Before Katrina happened, right?
1 year.
Tell me how to pronounce your maiden last name?
Terrio.
Terrio. Okay. Terrio.
And so Terrio was the largest plantation in Louisiana at one time.
Okay.
So I have a lot of cousins that are white. You know, so Terrio was the largest plantation, and so it was a sugarcane plantation. And so I think it's just a full circle moment for the Cupcake Collection to be doing its thing in an industry where my ancestors did not have free enterprise only 2 generations ago.
Now let me ask you. So you started the Cupcake Collection in your home, and you branched out and tried to open up you opened a location in New Orleans. And tell that experience of the New Orleans location.
So I opened New Orleans in 2017. That was 10 years after I had been in business. I had wanted to go in 2015, but my accountant told me to wait. She said, I need you to understand your power. You don't even know who you are, and you don't know what you can do. And I'm glad that she made me take a pause. And so I took a pause. And in 2017, I went home for the Jazz Fest because she gave me permission to get moving. And so I went home for Jazz Fest in New Orleans. We opened up on the main thoroughfare that leads into Jazz Fest. And the people were stopping and saying, who is that Black girl selling cupcakes? And that really propelled our name into the city. People were lined up, like we were stopping people, giving stuff away, getting them to come in and try what we were doing. We rented a Airbnb and flipped it into a Cupcake Collection because that's what the house in Germantown in Nashville, it reminds you of a house in New Orleans. So we went and took a house that looked similar, flipped it into a Cupcake Collection for that weekend, and sold cupcakes to all the people going in and out of Jazz Fest. So we mostly got business at the end of the night when the Jazz Fest would close down.
Yes.
Now, Jazz Fest is a well-attended music festival that happens every year, same weekends, every year. Big names, Stevie Wonder, like everybody has performed at Jazz Fest. In every genre, every major name, big and small, performs at Jazz Fest. So we knew that this is where we needed to be.
Okay.
And so that was my green light that they were going to receive it and that they were going to support it. So we went into New Orleans. It was difficult, our entry into New Orleans. Everybody can do something in the kitchen in New Orleans, okay? Like everybody. It's just kind of like, I always said, if you could make, Broadway has this thing in New York. If you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. Frank Sinatra said, it's up to you. And I felt that way about food in New Orleans. Like, if I can make it in food in New Orleans, baby, I'm going to write my ticket around this world. Because in that slave trade, they, depending on where the enslaved person came from, that's how the culture is influenced. So depending on who, whether if they were Senegalese, if they were, East African, West Africans, you know what I mean? Like wherever they came from, they cooked the way that they, from the traditions of their home, the barriers of language and, all these things, they cooked the best that they knew how. And so all of these things influence how they, how they show up in these different, cultures. And so I knew that if I could make it in this melting pot, that I would be able to make it anywhere. And we were in New Orleans for 7 years. We closed our store a year ago in January. Because God
7
said,
years?
Yeah. God said that he was done with it.
Okay.
And so I was there for 7 years. We left because we made the decision. Okay. Nobody asked us to leave, but our lease was coming due. And it was, are you going to sign another 5-year lease and keep on trying to make it? Or are you going to go find somewhere else to go with this? And we made the decision to bring it back into Nashville. And subsequently, when I felt God saying it was time to go. Subsequently, when we closed it, 2 new stores opened in Nashville. So we lost the 1 and gained 2. So we went from being 2 locations to 4 locations. So we were 1 in Nashville and 1 in New Orleans. And when we closed New Orleans, we became 4 locations in Nashville.
You have 4? You have 4 locations in Nashville?
Yep. We have Hendersonville, we have Lenox Village, we have Germantown, which is our flagship store, and then we reintroduced our mobile store, which goes around all over. So we went from 2 stores to 4 in obedience. And so when you obey God, you never know. The Bible says you have no clue of all the ways that I have to bless you.
Just as being a CEO, are you still in the day-to-day, the daily operations of your business?
Mm-mm.
No.
No, I am when I want to be.
Okay.
So my children now run the Cupcake Collection, and I work at the test kitchen. So we have the Cupcake
You better
Collection.
go ahead with your test kitchen.
I work in the test kitchen, and I test recipes. It's where we shoot things that we want to do, that we want to showcase, and that sort of thing. It has lots of room and lots of, places to get beauty shots and things like that.
Nice.
We've started inviting customers in to be taste testers and things like
Okay.
that. It's also a storefront as well, so it's got a location connected to it as well.
Okay.
So I get to go out and do the thing I promised God, and that is to tell others what they can do if they believe. So I spend a lot of my time speaking, writing, you know, going to meetings, sitting on boards, advising, mentoring, coaching, because I don't want it to just be that I'm taking from the city. I want to also be pouring back into the city. So I'm always giving back to my city.
Okay. Okay. Now, how is that? I have my kids working with me. Um, I just think it's, as an entrepreneur, everybody's not going to be on board. One of my sons
Yeah.
really took to it, and he was really great. So, is it something that, do you feel like it's a passion for your kids, or they're doing it because, well, mom said we got to work here, or
That is such a good idea. I don't know if it's definitely not their passion. Let me just say that. But they are passionate about it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I can see the passion in the way they approach it. My children are passionate about their mother.
Yes. Okay.
And because they're passionate about me and they believe me, they have followed me into this business. So they each work in a segment of the business that is where they're gifted.
Okay.
So one of them does all the production of the business. One of them is the director of all the operations of the business. And one is my lead. She is over all the decorators, over all the bakers. And they call her the cake doctor. And she will come in and scrub in and fix a cake like nobody's business. And none of these people are formally trained. She learned in that business from 10 years old being there.
That's right. My son started with me when he was 14. He was running the front. It's just so much in business that I think sometimes we as a people just don't know. So you're in there. It's just so much I learned afterwards. So he was in there from 14, but I think having that experience allowed him to be the child who he is now. In school, just really, really thriving. And like I said, no regrets, but I think he learned from that and it opened up doors for him. He was able to be like the school fellow for my brother's keeper, and was able to work for the assemblyman. But because he had that experience, I believe that in my soul. So do you plan on opening any other locations?
Absolutely. I want to be the largest Black founded food business CEO in the country.
That's right. Say
I
that.
want the Cupcake Collection to be a household name where you go to get cake to celebrate. That's my dream for it.
And that's why I feel like this is definitely one reason I wanted to have you come on here, because I don't feel like enough people. I did an interview with she's a chief culinary specialist in the Navy. So she's from New Orleans. And I was like, oh, maybe have you heard of Mignon Francois? She looked at me like, you can write an interview. So I want that. The people like maybe in New York. You got plans on coming to New York, opening up something here in New York?
Oh my gosh.
That would be amazing.
Absolutely love New York City. Let me just tell you, I love New York City. And I think I understand New York City because I understand New Orleans.
Okay.
Have you ever been to New Orleans?
I have, for the Essence Fest.
Can you see what I mean?
New
They are
Orleans
not the same.
I think I would want to visit New Orleans outside of Essence. Essence had a
Mhm.
whole lot going on, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I want to travel outside. I don't feel like I really had the opportunity to taste the food the way I wanted
Mhm.
to.
Mhm.
Um, I didn't love Bourbon Street. I
Oh, yeah,
didn't
yeah, yeah,
love,
yeah.
no. Maybe because it was so much going
Well,
on, but
Bourbon Street is for something else. Like that's
yeah.
Bourbon
And I
Street is
wish I
not
would
for
have
you.
stayed as we walked. I feel like there was a Canal Street, but I feel like
Yes,
there was
Canal Street.
hotels over there. I would
Yeah.
have preferred to stay there than with all the it was just too much. It was
Yeah,
just
you
too
have to
much.
go to New Orleans. It's going to be hard pressed to go to New Orleans when a festival is not going on. It is a
Hmm.
festival city. It's a city of celebration and revelry. But yes, you do need to go to New Orleans when it's not so much going on, so
Yeah,
that you can.
yeah.
But did you know that New Orleans is called the Big Easy,
Yes,
but
yes.
it's called the
Mhm.
Big Easy after New York being the Big Apple,
Oh, okay, okay.
and so the
Now
people.
I know New York. So if you could come and set up because I feel like we give so much clout to these other people and it's
Mhm,
not necessarily good. Just
mhm,
yesterday I made some banana pudding from
mhm,
scratch, of course. And I was just saying like this is so good. Like I love stuff from scratch and sometimes I feel like you really can't go to a place that we make it that it's going to taste really good and get the notoriety and people talk about it. We just love talking about sometimes we think other people's stuff is better and sometimes
mhm,
we don't support. So if you see me posting everything about Mignon, don't feel no way. I want people to know because
mhm.
I believe that. I believe you can be in every
Thank you.
place. In
Thank
my
you.
mind, I wanted to be like the black Starbucks because I love coffee.
Mhm.
So I wanted
Mhm.
good pastries with coffee. But people
Yeah.
just think, oh well, Starbucks like it's the pastries are crap. They're wherever they order them from. But I wanted it to
Mhm.
be fresh pastry. So why can't the Cupcake Collection be every place and it become a
Mhm.
household name? So
Well, thank you for saying that. I thank you for putting some of that belief energy
yes,
behind us.
yes, yes.
I truly, I love New York City so much. I was telling my granddaughter that I wanted to just pick up and go live in New York for like a month and
Mhm.
just be a New Yorker for a month. And that I was going to take her with me. And she was like, please don't take me. Because I took my two oldest granddaughters to New York and one almost got lost on the subway. And because she wasn't paying attention and
Mhm.
like it did teach her to pay attention to her
Mhm.
surroundings. She almost got
Mhm.
left on the subway.
Mm.
It was a very scary
Yeah.
thing. But I love the food scene. I love the people. People say New Yorkers aren't friendly. That has never been my experience.
Well,
Um,
where have you been hanging out?
in Manhattan.
Okay, well that's different. So Manhattan,
Okay.
yeah, Manhattan is made for tourists, right? Depending on
Okay.
how far you go. Man, don't go
Mhm.
too far. But Manhattan
Mhm.
is made for tourists, so
Yeah.
it is a nice experience. But when you
Okay.
start, there's other things in the different boroughs, but you kind of
Yeah.
got to know. Like Brooklyn is nice. Brooklyn is
Yeah, I
nice.
want to go. That's why I want to go for like a month and go and experience all the other boroughs. Like, I
Yeah.
want to go stay in Harlem. I want to go stay in Brooklyn. I want to go stay in the Bronx. Like, I want to
Now
eat the
wait a minute.
food.
You don't want to stay. You don't want to be in the Bronx. Let me slow you down, Mignon. You don't want to be in the Bronx now. No. Brooklyn is nice. I mean, there's nice places. I'm sure there's a nice place in the Bronx, but the scene is the city. Like I
Mhm,
work for the subway, right? So
mhm,
if your granddaughter would have gotten lost, I would have been the clerk where you'd be like, oh, my granddaughter's lost. I would have
mhm,
been able to call. I worked in the subway as the station agent, so
mhm, mhm,
so I got to learn the city. And
mhm,
Manhattan is more so. That's of course where the tourists go, and there's a million restaurants down there, a
mhm,
million places to go. So I think you would thrive. I know the rent is crazy out there,
mhm,
but you want someplace like I opened my shop in Staten Island.
mhm,
Looking back, mm, Staten Island for me isn't necessarily the place to really thrive, right? It's
mhm,
kind of just segregated,
mhm,
literally, right? So
mhm,
I think the Cupcake Collection could be a thing in Harlem.
mhm.
Oh yes, Harlem.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
could
that would
see
be
that.
good. Yeah,
I could see that.
I could. Would you ever have the Cupcake Collection as a franchise? Would you ever think about?
Yeah, so we did think franchise. There is so much to opening a franchise that right now it feels like when you do franchising, that's what you're doing. You're franchising. You're not
Okay.
really getting to do the fun of the business.
Okay.
So we shelved the whole franchise idea for that reason, because then you're no longer governed by the like the health department. You're governed by the FDA at that point. And that's just a
Okay.
bunch of documenting, and that
Okay.
doesn't seem fun. So we kind of shelved that idea for that reason. Doesn't
Okay.
mean that we would never go back to it, but we're currently exploring retail opportunities,
Okay.
um, and taking our product to the masses that way.
So I see that you ship your cupcakes. Do
Mhm.
you ship out of that test kitchen? Where do you ship your cupcakes from?
We ship out of our flagship store in Nashville.
The original Germantown that used to be your house?
Uh-huh.
Is the
We
whole
are,
house now?
yeah. We are a
Really?
mom and pop shop still that does commercial size business. That store, it amazes me that God is still keeping it, like it's still
Yeah.
holding up after all the wear and tear. It's been through a tornado, it's been through the pandemic, all that kind of stuff. But we're asking God for an opportunity to update it, and
Mhm.
actually add warehouse to it so they can stay right where it is.
Okay, okay. I know now you also mentioned that I see you speaking a lot. Is
Hmm.
that something you're passionate about? And I think
Yes.
like the message that you have to give to be so which is motivational. Like I said, I don't feel like I can articulate it. I can just tell somebody, girl, you need to go ahead and do that. But you say it in such a you say it in such a way. So even how you explained how that first time you was on stage, because I get over it. Like I was like, oh, I'm getting ready to interview her, but I know in my heart, I don't know if it's a Virgo thing, but I know I'm built to, like, I don't have time to be scared. Just by
Hmm.
the mere fact I emailed you,
Hmm.
who else is going to do it for me? I can't. Oh, wish I
Yeah.
could interview her, but if I don't put my foot forward, and what does that look like? How often are you speaking? Do you mainly, like, what are the topics outside of just being motivational?
The speaking part is about me keeping my promise to God. I told God, if you make me successful, I'll tell anybody who will listen about what they could do if they believe. Getting the opportunity to write this book and to go traveling with this book around the world is just about me getting into more houses, into more spaces, so that I can tell more people and they can collide with me at 3 o'clock in their morning, or they can
Mm,
collide with me when I'm sleeping. They can be up in their afternoon finding out what God is willing to do for them, because I believe that God is not a respecter of persons. So when you see him do it for me, he's showing you what you could have if you ask him.
mm-hmm.
And so just being out here and on the speaking circuit is allowing me to tell other people my story so that they will know what they can also do.
What's your greatest takeaway from your business? I think that's it. The greatest takeaway.
Ooh. The greatest takeaway that I have from my business is that we are not afraid of failure, we're afraid of success,
Hmm.
because success requires something of me. So if I'm going to be successful, that means I got to get up when I don't feel like it. I have to show up when I don't feel like it. I have to follow through when I don't feel like it. But if I fail, then I get to blame the failure for what I'm
Yes.
not doing in my
Yes.
life.
You
And
better, I'm
so,
telling you, yes, that's so powerful, because I think people want things to happen without doing the work. You got to
mhm,
do the work. That is so powerful. I heard you on, talk someplace saying how, or maybe even a book, that you worked in your business. I worked for transit at night. I used to work in the mornings, but I changed my schedule so I could come open up my shop. And it's so much work. It's so much work. Just it's just so much work. So you said you was in there, not even making money, but you have to do it.
yeah.
Sometimes people want to, oh, I want this business, but aren't willing to do the work. So that is really important. That is,
Mhm.
I'm gonna clip that. I'm gonna clip that. That is so important. And what would you say after you have really? you now know, okay, I'm this successful business person. What's the thing you've done that you feel like, what's the thing you've done because of your success that you weren't able to do? Like a big
Mm,
purchase or maybe travel someplace. What's the thing that you've done because of your success?
mm. Oh, I live a very basic and simple life. One thing that I guess I have been able to do because of my success is begin to purchase real estate that I
Mm,
get to leave, and so I have a will and a trust set up for my children,
mhm,
so that on the day that I expire, they won't have to grieve over and figure out what happens with mom's things. I've been
mhm,
able to set up a trust for them in which I've decided how everything will continue to run so that the business will run in my absence. And so I feel like those are things I never owned anything before.
mhm.
So one,
And
but
as
one
hard as it
special,
was trying to keep the houses, right? Now
yeah,
you buying this real
now I have
estate.
several properties,
Yes.
and one of the things that I don't ever need to have big, gigantic things. People are always so shocked when I say this. I just recently renovated and moved into a little cottage that I love that I made for myself. But you probably understand this living in New York. I just moved out of 335 square feet. And people
Mm,
are like, what? And I
mm,
loved it. My mom
mhm,
lived in Manhattan for, I think, 7 years. So I understood what it meant to live in New York. And I studied New York style living in order to set this house up in a way that, was comfortable for me.
mhm.
And so that's what I did. And so when I built this cottage, which is only 800 square feet itself, I'm like, all this room everywhere, I
Nice.
got this big old kitchen that now I will start, filming in again and making things
Mm,
again and inviting people in again, that I didn't have when I sold my last house. But I will say something special about every property that I've owned on my own has been on property that was formerly worked by enslaved people. So now I live on a property that is
mm,
adjacent to the Hermitage, which is Andrew Jackson's home. So he owned
mm,
a lot of enslaved people. And so their houses, many of the houses are gone, but on the plantation, it's got several of the old cabins.
uh-huh.
And so where the cabins are lined are just past the tree line, where my property backs up to it. And
Mm,
one day one day it dawned on me, wow, God, I have owned on property. Every house that I own
mm,
has a historic value
mhm.
connected to my ancestors.
Yes, yes, yes.
Um, Even the house where the Cupcake Collection is, we haven't done our due diligence to get a marker put on it, but we
Mhm,
need to finish the work to get a marker placed on it,
mhm.
because we learned that the people who were there originally had been doing some Underground Railroad work. And
Really?
so we found a secret room.
In
We found
Germantown?
Mhm. The Germans who settled in that area were very active, on the Underground
Mm,
Railroad. And so when we were doing our renovation, we found a secret room, in our house. And so a
wow.
historian came over. This is not something I've ever really talked about before. But a historian came over and told me how to start the process to find out. And down in the secret room, which was hidden underneath the house, we found a pair of vintage, I'm saying very old specs. We found like a measuring tool. That we just found evidence. We found evidence of people,
Oh,
um, underneath the house that were like very old artifacts. So we
really?
just every property I've owned has had. God is showing me He's using me to redeem time.
Yes, yes. You better say that. Yes, yes,
So I
yes.
think that's one of the greatest takeaways that I have from business is that
Mm-hmm.
God is allowing me to redeem time that was stolen from my ancestors. And I
Mm-hmm.
get to actually live and walk in what they worked for.
Hmm. What does Mignon do for fun?
Ooh, work.
Yeah, yeah, but when you let your hair down, what does some
I
days
I love to travel. I
okay,
love to eat good food.
yeah. Do
I
you cook?
love
Do you cook?
I do, but I'm from New Orleans.
Yeah, so like so
But
sometimes
I'm not like a person who enjoys being in my own kitchen cooking. No, I like
okay,
eating at other people's tables. So I like to
okay.
travel to eat.
Yes, yes, I
So me
do.
and
I
my
do.
daughter just got back from Hawaii last week and we ate Hawaii out of house and home. Like
Oh,
we,
really?
we were like, go here, 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 buy up all these things on the menu. I love to eat and I love to
Okay.
travel. One of my bucket list things is to get on a plane, go somewhere and eat, and come back home the same day.
Okay. 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 Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what
Okay.
I like to do.
Okay. Okay. Well, I think wait, let's give some parting words, some motivation for the people who are thinking that they want to start
Yep.
some kind of business, maybe in the culinary space, but I think your message just really resonates with anyone. It doesn't have to be that culinary space. There was so many nuggets. So I really highly recommend Made from Scratch by Mignon Francois. It's just so inspirational. And I got so many nuggets that I wasn't expecting. I
Yeah.
had to I had to put the book down. I didn't got teary eyed over it. So it just really, really is a good read. It reads like a novel.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, right? Unfortunately, it's a
Mhm.
novel, but that was your life. But
Mhm.
so some parting words, some inspirational words for people out there who are thinking about doing something, but just need a little extra oomph to get out there and do it.
I would say stop waiting and start doing. 94% of Americans are waiting for some major event to happen in order to start living their lives. They're waiting for their children to graduate from high school. They're waiting to be out of
Mhm.
debt. They're waiting for for the years to retire. And I would say stop waiting and start doing. Stop watching other people live their lives and go make a life worth living. I would say that all you have is all you need to get from where
Mhm.
you are to where it is that you want to be. Yes, you might need a big mixer. Yes, you might need a commercial
Mhm.
refrigerator. Maybe you will need a commercial space in order to start your business. But everything that you need one day is not the stuff you need on day one. So
Mm.
start where you are with what you have to get from where you are to where it is that you want to be.
And I think that's a great way to end it. Well, Mignon, I'm thankful. I appreciate your time. Again, I honor you. I thank you for writing the book, for being who you are. And I will do everything that I can do to elevate your name so it's more of a household name. Everybody needs to know the Cupcake Collection. So I
Can I
thank you.
tell you that I appreciate that so much? And God told me that that's how it was going to be. He said that people are going to pray to me on your behalf that you would be successful because of the obedience that you have exemplified in doing what I told you to do. So,
Yeah.
by you saying that, it's just a reminder to me. And I thank God for every time He reminds me that people would pray to Him and ask that I would be successful because I obeyed what he told me to do.
You really
So
did. You
thank you.
really, really did. There was things you did. I was like, come on now, me. But you did. And it really made me really tap into my faith. Like,
Mhm.
some just to be more aware and think more I am spiritual. I do believe, but sometimes I think we take things for granted and really kind of take a step back to see why things are happening, or be even closer, have a closer relationship,
Mhm.
because all that you've done, I think there's quite a few of us out here that we could write a book, but it's something I know God doesn't give us more that we can take, but give me a break sometimes, right? Right? Could you give me a break? But you have really listened. You listen. Even I think you was you put your last money in the offerings at the church, you know? Where some people like, do I eat or do I give? I think it was like $60 or something you
Yeah.
put in. I read it on the Kindle, so I had some
Yeah.
notes saved, but it was just really, really a good read. And I want to also thank you for your spirit to be so humble and just willing, because there's so many people you could talk to. Like who's the chefs here? Like I don't got time for that, but I thank you. That means so much to me as just me living in me knowing that this is what I'm supposed to do. So to tell people, because nobody told me what you could do. No, I went to culinary school as a grown ass woman. Nobody told me what I could do. So again, thank you. And if ever you're in New York, I would love to really just kind of meet
Honey,
with
I'm
you.
coming and I'm gonna call you when I get
You gotta
there.
stop playing. Don't listen. You call me, New York. I can show you around. Or I love food, but just like I am on it. I really, really am. So I thank you. But like I probably go home and stop. Once I stop crying, just because I really, really, because it's not enough of us. So I love seeing your success. I love it. So I know it's possible. So that before I start crying, that's it. So I thank you. I thank you so much. So if people want to get in contact with you, if they want to, book you for a speaking gig or order some cupcakes, tell people how they can get in touch with you.
They can get in touch with me on the cupcakecollection.com. It's open 24 hours a day and we ship nationwide from our website. I love to interact with people on Instagram, and that's on mignon.francois. And then they can follow me on Facebook at I am Mignon, and then on my website at mignonfrancois.com.
Okay. So thank you, Mignon, for telling our listeners what they need to know about everything they need to know about how to be in business and keeping the faith and staying motivated and getting it done.
You need to know what to do with that dough. Let the chef show you. You need to know what to do with that dough. Let the chef show you.